There it goes. That's so dumb. So I had some window open the whole time. All right. Hey, what's up out there? David Duford here at davidduford.com, where I help insurance agents like you become top producing insurance professionals. Thank you so much for joining on yet another spectacular event. This is the David Duford Show, the experience of being with El Jefe. And it's show number 7. And today the topic is how to find annuity deals in your existing leads. And I'm bringing on a good friend in the business who is probably been doing annuities longer than I've been alive. Mr. Scott, how you doing today? Good way to start off, right?
Great way to start off.
That was a compliment. You know, I'm just so young, you know. Jeez.
Yeah. Okay. That's a shaded way of saying, hey, Scott, you're an old fart, but that's all right.
Hey, man, there's that old treachery and old age. Nothing wrong with that. So
that's right. Well, I started in 1989.
Okay. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, just to kind of give the viewers kind of who you are and what you do.
Well, when I started in the business back in 1989, I started out with a captive company, Minnesota Mutual. And back then we had things that they don't have now, white pages, which are telephone books. They put one on your desk and start calling and cold call just to offer people insurance. And I quickly realized that that wasn't the way that I wanted to go with things. And I discovered a little thing called an annuity. And once I discovered an annuity, I found and made friends very quickly with an estate planner, but he was a tax attorney as well. And I need to clarify that when an attorney puts the initials JD after their name, that stands for Juris Doctorate. That means they're just a basic attorney. What you're looking for if you do estate planning with an attorney is one that has the initials LLM, which means Masters in Legal Taxation. And they can make a huge difference from what they're doing. So we went to the local senior center and we started seminars or workshops with the seniors, specifically showing them how to preserve their assets in the event that they had to use a nursing home. And I formed a company called Medicaid Planning, was able to get endorsement from the North Carolina Council on Aging, and did workshops every single week. And we're talking to individuals that wanted to preserve their assets. That's bottom line what we did. Now, this was early 90s when we were doing that. And it was so successful that a large bank actually came in and said, go away, we're buying your business from you. And I had to work for them for a total of 5 years. They moved me to South Carolina, and that's really how I started on the track that I'm on now. I've written some very, very large annuity cases and have worked with some large insurance companies that I was the top salesman for them, specifically in that arena. You know, annuities are very, very flexible, and they're very, very, they can do quite a bit that most people aren't aware of them. When they hear the word annuity, they get scared. They think it's too complex to even talk about. And David, I'd like to take this opportunity to say that anyone that is serious about doing annuities, there's a book by the author is Patrick Kelly. And I think you're going to pull out that book right now. Okay.
Here.
Yes.
Excellent book, guys.
Excellent.
It's like $3 on Amazon used. So that's where you need to go get it.
Called Stress-Free Retirement. And specifically it's written for the client so that they understand what annuities are, and more especially what indexed annuities are. It takes about 2 hours max to read the whole book. And when the client takes time to read the book, they come to you and said, wow, this is what I want.
Right.
Regardless. And everybody can find out about that. The second thing I want to do, there's another book that I've been, and it's on $1 Million Roundtable of all places, and it's specifically, can you see that?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Secrets. It comes out backwards on mine.
Yeah, it's normal on. It's kind of got a mirror effect. Yeah, we can see it. Read it.
Okay. Secrets of Closing the Sale by Zig Ziglar. And what this book will allow you to do, specifically when it comes to annuities, this book is written in story format. When you read this book, Zig was famous for giving you ideas to talk with your clients to help them understand what you want them to understand, or leading them down in an area that you want to talk about, or getting them to say that. It's an incredible, it almost is the Bible of persuasion. It really does have some great insights. The other book that I have in my collection, I recommend everyone get a copy of, which is much more technical details. And this one was written by Harley Gordon, and it's called How to Protect Your Life Savings. And this is a very difficult book to come across. This was published in 1996, and I understand that there's an update that came out in 2001, but it's specifically going to talk about what seniors and what folks are going through when it comes to protecting their assets from catastrophic nursing home stays or catastrophic events like that. And that annuities are one of the few vehicles that you can literally use to protect assets from being confiscated. Now, there is some specifics that you have to learn about it. It gets a little complex, but it is one of the vehicles that helps individuals protect their assets and use them for what they want to use them for, instead of paying for expenses that come up.
Right.
So now, getting back to your original question, how do you find people that are interested in having an annuity? What is it that you want to talk about? Well, I'm going to explain to you, this is an unusual circumstances, but it came about the same way that I would find anyone. I met an individual, and this individual actually had a rock quarry, and he was a very unassuming man. You would not think twice about him. However, this rock quarry was literally almost like a gold mine. He literally was turning a rock into cash. That's what they were doing. They just took the granite, mined it out, made it into little pebbles, and made roads and streets, etc. with those rocks. He took and saved money over time, and he had a concern. Now, one of the concerns was his daughter was, I don't know the politically correct way to say this, but she was mentally deficient. Let me put it that way. All right. And his concern was that he wanted to be able to pass his assets onto his daughter once he passed away. He was 84 years old, and his daughter was like 43. However, she still lived at home, and he was having to take care of her. Once we started talking back and forth, I found out who his attorney was. I went and talked with the attorney, and the attorney says, that is a wonderful idea. Let's get back together with him. Literally, it was such a large amount of money that when I met with this individual, I told him, and I said, Mr. Jones, and I'm not using his real name, Mr. Jones, you know that this is what needs to happen to protect your daughter assets. And he goes, yeah. I said, not only have I explained all the benefits here, however, your attorney has told you this is something you need to do as well. And he got very quiet. And this is probably one of the most critical times. When they get quiet, don't start talking. Just let them think, because what they're doing is they're mulling something over, and it's probably the most uncomfortable time that you're going to have in front of a client. All of us can relate to that. Then this individual looks at me and he goes, Scott, the money's not in my account right now. I said, that's okay. Go ahead and write a check for it, and we'll deposit it on Friday. The money should have cleared by then. Bottom line, it was an $18 million annuity. It was huge. It was so large that it set records across America with the largest annuity. It was so large, we had to place it with 3 separate companies because the risk to each insurance company was so big. What I'm trying to say is, I started this conversation off when I discovered that his daughter was 43 years old, living at home. And I don't know the politically correct word. Mentally retarded is what I wanted to say. Okay, I don't know what it is now. And I knew that he wanted to take care of his daughter. I knew that before I even said word one to him. Knowing that about your client ahead of time will give you the opportunity that you can help them. Then people say, well, Scott, what is an annuity? Well, the easiest way I can explain what an annuity is, anybody who asks me that question, is an annuity is just like a CD with a bank, except it's with an insurance company, and it's backed by the full faith and strength of the insurance company. To take that one step further, no one has ever lost a penny in a fixed annuity. Now, that can't be said for variable annuities, and that can't be said for any type of securities, but it can be said for fixed instruments like an indexed annuity. And the beauty of this asset, when I'm sitting there talking to someone who's 65 years old and I've just sold them a final expense policy, I start asking them questions and specifically say, okay, where did you retire from? What kind of work did you do? And they will tell you. I'll say, great. Did you participate in the 401k or the savings plan that they had at work? And they'll tell me yes or no. If they say yes, they participated in that 401k, and I'll say, great. What did you do with the assets once you retired? Oh, well, it's sitting down at Edward Jones, or it's sitting down at Wells Fargo, or it's sitting with Merrill Lynch or one of the other brokerage firms. I say, great. I bet you're really, really pleased with the performance that it's given you in the past years. And they will say one of two things. Yes, they like what has happened with it, or no, I'm really not comfortable because I don't understand how it's invested. Now, if they say that, that's giving you an opening like you just would not believe. Yeah. Now, I'm not telling you to take a 401k statement and tell them that they need to move it from this mutual fund into that mutual fund, or move it from stocks to bonds, or move it from stocks and bonds to money market, because you're not licensed to do that. What I am saying is to ask the following question. So, Mr. Jones, can I ask you, how does it make you feel when you get your statement and there's less money in that statement than what you started out with the month before? How does it make you feel? And they'll come up with some kind of answer. Oh, well, it goes up and down on a regular basis. And I say, yes, I understand that. But how does it make you feel? If you decided you needed to take your money right then and there, would you take a loss on your money? And you open up a conversation with them and get them discussing their feelings, because what I'm trying to do is I'm getting them to actually open up is kind of like the first statement you make when you're in the process of doing your final expense sales. So tell me, Mr. Duford, in filling out this card, what were your thoughts and feelings regarding filling out this card? Or what were your thoughts and concerns? And I'm asking them the same question when I've already sold them a policy. You will never find a better time to talk to them. It's when you just made them feel good about buying something from you right then and there. They're more open to pulling out their 401k statement and say, well, here's the latest one right here. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let me first tell you, the average person who has worked a blue collar job, worked on an assembly line somewhere, or worked in some way, has worked there for 20 years, is going to possibly have a 401k that's going to be $50,000 and up. Meaning they put away a little bit every week for the past 20 years, and they want to have a nest egg of some type. Now, I run a calculation. Let's just say that you're at a 5.25% or a 5% commission rate when you write an annuity. $50,000 annuity is going to generate for you $2,500 worth of commissions. If you were to do one annuity per month, just one, then that would generate for you $30,000 in your pocket every year. And it's not hard to find assets like what I'm talking about. All it takes is for you to ask the question. So tell me, where did you work? Where did you retire from? Did you have a 401k? Did you save for retirement? Do you have a pension? What kind of cash flow do you have coming in? And start the conversation. Now, if they pull out their statement and they hand it to you, and you can take a look at this statement, and up top, it's going to say typically how the statement is performed over a period of time. There's one other thing. If you look on that statement, you will see something called fees. All right. And you can literally say, so according to what you're telling me is you're not comfortable when this goes up and when it goes down and when it goes up and when it goes down. Am I hearing what you're saying, Mr. Duford? And if you agree to what I'm saying at that point, well, have you noticed the fees that you're being charged on this account on a monthly basis? Well, what do you mean? All right. The fees on a mutual fund within a 401k can be as high as 4%. All right. Now, typically, let me put that in layman's language. If you have $100,000 and there's a 4% fee annually on that, that's $4,000. If there's a 1% fee on that, that's $1,000. And depending on the amount, you can figure out how much they're paying in excess fees to the brokerage firm. And folks don't like paying fees. By the way, fixed indexed annuities don't have fees because it's not a security.
I'll add is it's hilarious because that's the objection that financial advisors I commonly hear. They say, oh, you know, the annuity guys make a big commission. And I'm like, have you not seen the fees that are in these 401ks and IRAs? It's like, we take our money up front. They're not even factored into the policies themselves. You know, it doesn't reduce out of the policy size for the clients. There's just so much misinformation. It's crazy.
Well, there was a large company that I used to write variable annuities, and I used to do an extreme amount of variable annuities. And I would pass this on to folks and I would say, well, the management of this variable annuity is 1.75% per year. The average annuity that I was writing was $250,000. So if you look at the amount that you're paying out in fees and you extrapolate that to somebody, it really can be a lot of money. So how are we helping our clients? Where is the benefit? Where am I going with this? Well, first and foremost, it's our job, and I like to, and excuse me for speaking bluntly, but our job is basically to scare the fool out of people. All right. If you think about it, we're giving them every negative we possibly can give them about what's going to happen to them in the future. Now, if I talk about their assets that they've saved over time, and I'm talking about the volatility that's happening with that, and volatility means nothing but the ups and downs. If we go back 12 years ago to 2008, the Standard & Poor's 500, which is an index of 500 basic stocks. The Standard & Poor's index in a period of 4 months went down by 38%. The bottom line, what that means is if you had $100,000 in your 401k, after 3 months, you now have $62,000. Mr. Duford, how's that make you feel?
Like shit.
Okay. I mean, that's what your bottom line doing is you're leaving your assets at risk. Now, let me ask you a question. Mr. Duford, let's say that I was able to put you in the Standard & Poor's 500 index, and every time it went up, you took advantage of that. You were given a portion of that upward trend. Every time it went down, guess what? Would you guess what would happen if the index went down?
Lose money like I am right now?
No. Actually, what you do is your money remains flat. All right. And then when the market starts to recover, guess what? Your money starts going up again. So there's a saying, and most people, I'll give you an example. What happened was back in 2008, again, I had a client who had the year before had an annuity, and that annuity went up by 13%. Wow, I was impressed. I was going to go do a yearly call with this individual and show them that they got a 13% return. Well, guess what? They weren't impressed because their next door neighbor had gotten something like a 24% return on their money. And I walked away and I said, gee whiz, that's a hard nut to crack. I mean, anybody should be happy with that kind of return, right? Well, on goes another year, okay? I come back and the market had done exactly what I told you. It had dropped by 38%. And I thought, oh my God, if she wasn't excited with a 13% return, how in the world am I going to show up and show her a 0% return? You know, that little lady met me at the front door with brownies and coffee and cake. The point I'm getting at, she hugged my neck. She was so happy because guess what? Even though we got a 0% return, her neighbors lost over 38%. And she was just tickled pink. So bottom line is this. It's not that we have to win the race. We don't have to come out with the best return possible. What we have to have is safety and security and long-term ability to show our clients that their money is safe. Now, I also got on the web and I went and I looked at one of the companies that probably 95% of your agents are licensed with, a little company called AIG or American General. They have perfect brochures that specifically talk about indexed annuities with a product comparison that literally you can read that explains what indexed annuities are and how they work. There are brochures that they can read with, like, for example, the Power series of indexed annuities. It shows specifically how the Standard & Poor's has performed over time and how annuities have held up during this period of time. Now, getting back to the question is, where can I find folks that have money? Well, again, if you're doing a direct mail lead, These folks want you to come by and show them information about their burial or pre-needs, their life insurance. So you go through the whole presentation. However, there is one thing that I would like you to add to the end of your conversation. I literally asked them where they worked and where they retired from. Tell me about yourself. Once they give you that information, say, great. What kind of savings plan did you have with them? Typically, the broker that they've chosen is either at their bank or an Edward Jones or a Wells Fargo or any type of major brokerage house, is where they didn't know where to go, or Fidelity, and they've just parked their money there. They're not actively managing it. I can tell you that brokerage house is awful happy that they've parked it there, because they're getting 1 to 1.5% on fees every year for that. Okay. What kind of questions you got for me?
All right. Well, Scott, you did a great job explaining things. If you guys are watching this, have questions, please post them in the chat. I got one from Moro here, and I think this is a pretty good question. In your opinion, Scott, not my opinion, do you think annuities are something new agents should wait until they're a little bit more seasoned before they actually look at them? Or do you think this is something they can take on sooner than later?
Actually, I think it's something you can take on sooner or later. All right. Annuities have a stigma attached to them where they sound complicated, when actually it's the easiest thing in the world to show someone how their money can grow. Annuities have a specific associated to that you can generate a lifetime income off of an annuity by one of two ways. You can, and this is what people don't understand. Every year you have an annuity in place. I do not know of a company that does not have this benefit, so I think it's universal across the board. They can take out 10% of their money totally free. No penalties, no problems. They can take out 10% of their money. All right. And typically that's enough for someone to generate an income. On the other hand, if you had a comparison, like let's just take a CD. If you take a CD, you go into the bank and you decide to take out 10% from your CD, guess what? You're going to pay penalties, aren't you? Right? There is no penalty with that annuity to take out 10%. Now, if you go over and above the 10%, yes, there could be penalties attached to whatever type of annuity you have. But the second thing that people don't understand about annuities, if you decide to take your annuity and convert it, you can convert it to lifetime income. It will never go away. I don't care if you live to be 121 years old, you're still going to get that check month in and month out. And that's called annuitization. That means you are taking a lump sum and converting it to payments. And that's where it gets a little confusing for folks, because they don't understand how to explain that. It's a very, very simple explanation. And Mauro, I appreciate you asking the question, should someone wait to get very good at one thing before they go to another? Yes. I agree that you can spread yourself too thin and try and learn everything about everything. So my suggestion is specifically to get very good at final expense. Once you've mastered final expense, well, let me back up. Once you're selling final expense policies, go ahead and ask the question where they retired from and if they built up a 401k or a savings plan. Once you find that answer out and say, oh, that's wonderful, find out if they like volatility or they don't like volatility, and then be quiet. Just say, granted, I have got a program that you're going to be very, very interested in. I didn't bring the information with me today. However, I'll get back to you with that information. Pick up the phone and call Mr. Duford. He has got resources for you that will train you on that. All right. I'll help someone sell an annuity over the phone. It's not a problem. Annuities, that's all I've done for 30 years. I get lost on a lot of life insurance questions, but I don't when it comes to annuities. By the way, did not clarify, an annuity can be non-qualified money or it can be qualified money. And there's two types of things you need to know about. Non-qualified means it's not retirement funds. It is just standard savings. Qualified money is 401ks, IRAs, SEPs, PIOs, pension plans. They're all types of plans that are put in place that have restrictions to them. So it's a very, very, the market is great because you can go either market you want to. Where you'll find a lot of IRAs are in banks. What's the percentage rate they're getting in the bank right now? I saw one the other day going down the highway, 0.7%. All right. It is not much nowadays. And so it's not a big deal for people to say they want to set the money aside for their children or grandchildren and want to have it as a nest egg, but had no other way to put it and were worried about safety and security. So when you run into those folks, they're perfect to move money across. Don't be scared to talk about money. That's the kicker, because if you aren't scared to talk about it, got to remember, David can reach in his back pocket and he can get you an expert on the phone very, very quick.
Good. More questions here. So from Gerson, what percentage of your final expense business converts to annuity business?
Well, that's very hard to answer that question. It just depends on what there's a wide majority of final expense that don't have two pennies to rub together. I don't think that I'm talking out of school when I say that. However, there's a wide majority of folks that just need to reach the age of 75 years old that don't have any life insurance in place and they want life insurance. I have walked into homes where literally it was just plain nasty to go into, and yet they had over $250,000 in savings. So you never can do. Never prejudge anyone because you never know what you'll come across.
There's all sorts. It's more than I ever imagined. I remember the first annuity deal I ran into. It was a level 5 cat lady. She had like 5 cats. I walked in and, I was like literally inhaling cat hairs, probably worsening my COPD even worse than it. Just bad. It was bad. And I sat down and she said, my husband just died. We were getting a divorce. He didn't change the beneficiary on the life insurance and the 401ks. And I ended up with like $600,000. She's telling me all this. And I'm like, I don't think you need 10,000 in coverage. How about I get an annuity guy over here to kind of help you through this? And so he ended up writing 125, 130,000 on her. She lived in a modest home, was definitely a final expense blue collar client, just like Scott's talking about. And she was concerned about what to do with this money. And she closed on the second appointment. Yeah, I brought a guy named Jacob Anderson in and he closed it on the second one. This is years ago. And I got split. I got a $4,000 commission off of that. I was like, dang. And that was half of the comp, it was just like, it was incredible. So, yeah. So you'll find it, Gerson. Also, we do like one of the strategies we use is to get you in front of people 65 and older using Medicare supplement leads. That will get you in front of a more lower middle class client that's not as low income as final expense. And if you use the same kind of strategy going in, talking Medicare and, oh, by the way, talking about retirement and all that Scott's talked about, you'll find more, I think, as a percentage of the type of lead that you get back. A lot of times it's just about having a conversation, and then people realize, like you said, you got to get them to essentially picture the hearse backed up against the front door. You've got to be very descriptive in the negative. Let's see. Next question. Got a couple here for Scott. What's the target age for a fixed index annuity? I've heard it's usually older folks. Is there something similar for younger folks, or is the older people thing a myth and can be suitable for all ages?
Okay, there is one requirement with annuities that everyone needs to be aware of. Once you place money into an annuity, it's a long-term investment. What I mean by that is if you're under the age of 59 and a half, then you decide to take money out of an annuity, you are going to be, not only will you have to pay income tax on that money, but you will also be penalized an additional 10% per Uncle Sam. So it has similar to the same rules as an IRA if you're under the age of 59 and a half. However, there are some exceptions to that rule. Whereas if you annuitize prior to age 59 and a half, you're not penalized the 10%. You just have to pay basic income taxes on that money. In addition to that, I mean, I have written annuities as young as 45 for individuals that are putting money back for a specific reason, whether they get in. Here's a good resource to find assets. A great resource is if someone knows of an ambulance chaser attorney. They're getting huge settlements, and typically the people that are getting those settlements don't know how to manage money at all. And what they're doing is you go to the attorney, you pitch the attorney, and you tell them specifically what you want to do is help their clients so they don't get their money and 6 weeks later are totally broke. You can set it up in such a way that if someone, for example, got a $100,000 settlement, you could talk with the attorney and get the attorney to help you sell that annuity for $50,000, half of their money. That way you're protecting it until they reach retirement age, and then they can get an income off of it. That is a huge area where you can find assets. The other place that you can find assets, specifically with final expense, is when you go to a senior center or you go to a local church and talk to the seniors group. They're begging for people to come in and talk to them about benefits that are available to them, because you don't write anything up at that meeting. If they want to meet with you, they will ask you in that workshop to meet with you. And there are scripts and there are presentations that you can get specifically on annuities. I've been looking around for one of my old presentations that I have, and if I can find it, I'll bring it to me to Chattanooga and I'll share it with anybody freely on that. It specifically is designed to help people protect their assets, and that's what needs to be conveyed to the individuals. You don't need to know everything. I don't know everything when it comes to annuities. However, I know where to go to find the answers. So that's the thing. Can't hear you.
I'm unmuted now. Okay, Gerson says, Scott, does a client have to transfer all of their 401k or pension into an annuity? Are there any incentives for a client to put more money into their annuities in the beginning instead over time?
Well, that's a twofold question, and it depends on their specifics. In 401k, depending on whether they've already retired or whether they haven't retired. If they've already retired and they want to transfer their assets, then there's no, well, most brokerage houses will do a partial transfer. However, I recommend that they keep their money all in one place. Now, there's things that you need to look at with a retirement, and you will be asked questions from the annuity company as to suitability, whether it makes sense for an individual to transfer their monies into an annuity. I mean, you have to have a reason for doing that. The second question was, I believe, on pensions.
Are there any incentives for a client to put more money into their annuities in the beginning? And then the other one was, does a client have to transfer all of their 401k or pension into annuity?
Well, again, I don't know. It's regarding every single plan, because it can be written into the plan that specifically they can transfer all or they can transfer a bit. Now, if they're still working and they're still at their firm, a large employer here in South Carolina is BMW. If they're still working at BMW and they have a 401k at BMW, they may not take any assets and transfer them anywhere under the age of 60. Once they reach 60 and older, even if they're still working, they can transfer assets, a portion of their assets. That's the BMW plan that I'm familiar with. It could be different at another large area, another manufacturer, but as a rule of thumb, they're not going to be able to transfer a portion of their 401k until age 60. Now, if they've worked at one firm, left that firm, went to another firm that has a 401k, they obviously can transfer or roll over their 401k from that other firm into an annuity.
Great. So Maura asks, I'll answer this question: direct mail Medicare supplement, or would any Medicare supplement lead type work? Facebook, telemarketing, et cetera. Yeah. So my philosophy when it comes to annuity leads is that the best thing you need to focus on is getting in front of the right people. We don't care. I don't care what the lead says. It's all of a function of how you lead the conversation with the right people. You know, you don't want to be in the most destitute parts of town with clients that have nothing, obviously, but you want to try to target in any way to get in front of a middle class type of clientele, blue collar, gray collar type of clientele. And so to answer your question, any of that works, any of it. Just as long as you get enough presentations. It's just like selling final expense. Annuity isn't a volume business. You're going to sell less annuities as a ratio of the appointments you run. So it even means more that you've got to run a lot of appointments to maximize your chances. So anything is good. It just comes down to what your preferences are.
Here's what I find out. I had a question. There was an earlier question as to whether somebody who was new should start out with annuities.
Yeah.
To answer that, I believe yes, they should. They should start with the basics and ask those questions, finding out where they retired, the volatility, how they like that. Get a feel for the person, and then get some assistance in doing that. Are you going to find people? Well, 9 times out of 10. They have some type of retirement, unless you're talking to someone that has been disabled for 14 years and they are living paycheck to paycheck, which we do find on a regular basis. But there are instances where you will come across the assets and you will find the assets. Don't be scared.
Yeah, right. It's not nearly as complicated as you think it is.
That's correct.
So from James Tube 2805, last question, Scott, for you. What are some of the ways to protect yourself when offering or signing someone up for an annuity?
What are the ways to protect yourself from what? I didn't understand that.
Let me read that. Yeah. James, if you want to clarify kind of what your intent is, please do so. What are some types or some ways to protect yourself when offering or signing up an annuity? I mean, like, are you, like, what if you run into Mrs. Mildred and, I don't know. I'm trying to figure out what he meant by this. If you want to comment back, like, is there any like room for, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what you're trying to ask here, man.
Well, I give an example of what happened to me. This was about 3 months ago, and specifically, I'm in Elberton, Georgia, and I called on this individual, and I'm talking to them about a short-term disability policy. And as I was talking to them, I just chatted and I said, so tell me, I asked them retirement, where they retired from, etc. And she said, oh, you're too late. This person from, and I think it was Edward Jones, signed me up for this annuity. And I said, great, have you got your statement? She said, yeah, but I'm upset with them. And I went, okay, why? She said, she wrote this annuity and I never hear anything else from them, or I never get to talk to them. And I've got another $350,000 here. I want to put it into an annuity. Okay. So you never know what you're going to come across unless you start talking about that. And I did put her in an indexed annuity at the time and showed her specifically how it protects her assets on the upside as well as the downside. And she was very, very pleased with that. I mean, you never know what you're going to come across. And it was, yes, she was a widow. She was 73 years old, and nobody had bothered to take the time to chat with her. She didn't have an outrageous house, and it wasn't, you would not have known that she had that kind of assets there. So, I mean, you never know what you're going to come across.
It's all, it comes down to the same stuff. The agent that takes his time or his or her time to sit down, have a conversation with the client, show that he cares and is curious and wants to help, is the one who's going to win. It doesn't matter if you're selling a dinky $25 a month final expense plan or like your $18 million annuity deal. It's just, humans are humans. We're just, all it is a few more zeros. That's been hard for me to digest, but I'm telling you, that's like people at the upper echelons or people with money, they think the same way. They have the same worries. They put their pants on one leg at a time. They're not that much different. Last question here, unless someone wants to pop in one last one from Archie. Archie asks, can you describe the positives of enhanced withdrawal payments? Most you have to wait 3 years for annuitized and be able to take advantage of it.
Well, that's not true. Okay. You can annuitize. Typically, most contracts, what you do, all right, somebody has $100,000. This is what I'm going to tell them. I'm not going to take all $100,000 and move it over there to an annuity. First of all, we're going to take $10,000 and we're going to put it to the side. All right. And then you can move $90,000 into the annuity. And what I've just done is their first year specifically pulled out 10% that they can use and however they want to at that point. And then after 1 year, most annuity firms or most insurance companies allow 10% withdrawal after the first year. It's uncommon for to have to wait longer than that, unless they're a qualified plan, unless they we're not talking about required minimum distributions. We're actually talking about a qualified plan under age 59 and a half. Then you have problems.
Great, Scott. Well, hey, Scott, thank you so much for your time today. If anybody's interested in pursuing this kind of course of action when it comes to finding annuities, whether you're working final expense, Medicare supplement, or any kind of senior lead, especially, we can help. We have the resources. Like Scott said, he's a very giving and helpful person. I mean, more so than a lot of people that are out there. So I'm sure he would be willing to help you guys out. The best way to reach Scott is through me if you're interested. And
can I interrupt you?
You can, go ahead.
I do want to say this one thing. People have asked me why I help them so much. All right. When I started with Minnesota Mutual, I'm 60 years old. When I started with Minnesota Mutual, I was just roughly 30. There was a man there, and I'll never forget this. His name was Ed Beaker. He was very successful. He was $1 Million Round Table. He was God in my eyes. And Ed literally took me by the hand. We became friends, and he passed on information to me that nobody else was willing to share. So I'm actually trying to pay it forward a little bit. Guys, I'll help anybody with their annuities if they come across something which they don't know to do it. In the past, do I have a background doing that? Yes, I've been a Series 7 stockbroker. I've been a registered investment advisor. I've been a options. I mean, I have gone through and I have the training necessary. Now, I'm not securities licensed anymore. I'm not about to sell securities, but I will pass on any of this information to anybody that wants it. And I'm freely open to help out and hope to make you successful.
Great. Well, guys, if you have any other final questions, what I would recommend is wait for the recorded version of this video to be posted. Scott's active on commenting on my video, so I'll just ask him to check out the video later. Leave your questions there. Scott will answer them directly, I'm sure. If there's anything I help with, I'll definitely pipe in. But in the meantime, thank you guys for listening. Scott, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate you taking time to kind of talk annuities. I appreciate it.
Thanks, El Jefe. I do appreciate it.
All right. Y'all take care. See you later. Bye.
Bye.